Chapter 3. 20 years of building an alien backstory unrelated to the rest of the plot. The years 2790 to 2810. Chapter 3.1. The construction of Eden. For the next 20 years, Lucifer oversaw the construction of Eden. Abraham, insisting to keep the project a secret, had refused to get external contractors in to assist with the project. Instead, Abraham was stuck to do all the work together with his 24 accomplices, who were soldiers, not builders. Although they had thousands of construction robots on the site, they simply couldn't keep up, and there was an endless line of transport ships outside Eden, waiting to offload their shipments. So much for secrecy. Another security issue the dementia-ridden Abraham had overlooked was the possibility to hack the construction robots to make them send a live video feed of what they were doing. These construction robots had been secretly hacked by every other faction as well as most news outlets, leading to the progress of Abraham's secret project being regularly broadcasted on the evening news as a reality show. Abraham, blissfully unaware of all of this, and instead he spent most of his time studying the history of the Zetan species. He did this by studying the sources in the vast array of old hidden dusty tomes in the Zetan archives located in the Divine Dimension. Chapter 3.2. The Zetan Backstory. 100,000 years ago, the Zetan alien race, against all odds, managed to open an interdimensional gate between our universe and the Divine Dimension. There is no logical way to explain how they did this. But then again, the Holy Bible is the most sold books of all times, so magic or God is often a good enough explanation for everything that is unexplainable. Regardless of how the Zetan got to the Divine Dimension, against all laws of physics, they did. And once they were there, they came up with a great and foolproof idea. To spread throughout the galaxy, not through colonizing other worlds, but by simply travel around and alter the genome of other species to make them smarter and start civilizations. This way, the Zetans could tell themselves that they indirectly spread across the Milky Way, which they could have done themselves if they just had a bit more interest in sex and procreation. Eventually, one of the Zetans realized the foolishness in amplifying the intelligence of other species, and they stopped the project, but by then they had already induced humans, as well as other species, such as the Xenus with heightened intelligence. For 90,000 years, nothing bad happened. The Zetans lived peacefully in their small galactic empire, governed over by the benign influence of the Zetu crystals. The Zetu crystals were actually just blue sapphires that did nothing, but the Zetans believed them to be divine crystals that made them good and peaceful, and they acted accordingly. 10,000 years ago, the Xenus species, which the Zetan foolishly had imbued with intelligence 90,000 years earlier, invaded Zetan territory. For unclear reasons, hell-bent on destroying the Zetan civilization. The Zetans beat them with ease, as the Zetans were supernatural beings with unexplained superpowers, and the Xenus were just brutish beasts with a proficiency for being a cannon fodder. But the Xenus kept coming back, and in big numbers, as they, despite being able to perform interstellar travel, had not grasped the concept of contraception. The repeated Xenu attacks slowly diminished the Zetan number, and they had three options. A. To start procreating. B. Using robots to fight their wars. And C. Find a primitive species to use as their own cannon fodder against the Xenus. The Zetans opted for C, and the species that got the questionable honor to serve as Zetan cannon fodder was humanity. The Zetans decided that the best way to get humans to fight their wars was to build a lot of portals across the earth, masked as pyramids. They then posed as gods to convince humans to make the questionable choice to walk through the portals to be recruited into the Zetan interstellar space army. Incredibly enough, the Zetan plan worked, and with the help of their human cannon fodder, they managed to repel the Xenus and fight them all the way back to their home planet of Sinura. The Zetans politely asked the Xenus to surrender, but the Xenus answered by saying, "Fuck off," and their thoroughly evil queen, who somehow had managed to infiltrate Zetan territory, caused a supernova explosion that destroyed the Zetan interstellar civilization. The destruction of their home planet caused the Zetans to stop being civil, and they responded by exterminating the Xenu species. At least you are led to believe so, until the second book. Chapter 3.3 Yahweh turns gay. With the destruction of his homeworld, Zetani, as well as the loss of the Z2 crystals, Yahweh ended up in a pickle in the Divine Dimension. For thousands of years, Yahweh had preached to humans how much he hated gay people. And now with the loss of the crystals, he found himself head over heels in love with Lucifer, the male rival he had spent the last few millennia bad-mouthing of. What a bummer. The sexual relationship with Lucifer made matters complicated for Yahweh, and it was a threat to his credibility. Yahweh came up with an ingenious solution to the problem. He invented a serum that would cure his homosexuality and give him an extreme sexual drive and arouse all women on earth. There was only a slight problem though. The serum made him a sex god for humans. As humans were a lower species than Zetans, Yahweh's cure for homosexuality had turned him from gay into bestiality instead. Not reflecting whether it was wise or not to go to Earth as a semi-divine alien being, Yahweh filled himself up with the serum and engaged in a massive 1-month sex marathon with human females. His sex marathon gave Yahweh a lot of children, but only one of them ever reached fame: Jesus. Eventually, he went back to the Divine Dimension where his boyfriend Lucifer, angered and hurt over Yahweh's unprecedented cheating spree, knocked him unconscious with the psionic blast. Chapter 3.4. Yahweh has a temper tantrum and accidentally destroys the portal to Earth. An undisclosed number of years later, Yahweh finally woke up from his slumber. He was hungry, thirsty, and had a terrible headache. It simply wasn't a good day for him. He looked down to earth through the magical pond in the Divine Dimension courtyard, and things got worse for him. Apparently, Jesus, one of the many sons that was the outcome of his sex marathon, had become exceedingly famous and was now more worshipped than Yahweh had ever been, claiming his name as the Father. Yahweh grabbed his walking stick, which contained a hidden dangerous weapon, and walked to confront Lucifer. He faced Lucifer as he was having tea and cakes with a couple of gossipy friends. Lucifer said, "Look who's back! It is the cunning and low-life pervert." Yahweh said, "What are you talking about? We used to be mates. We had great sex and good times together." Lucifer said, "I was referring to your sudden change of fetish to bestiality. Your sex marathon with female humans." An awkward silence ensued, as Yahweh was far from the only Zetan who had engaged in intercourse with humans over the years. Yahweh said, "Well, I'm not the only Zetan who has ever done it. Anyways, I'm here to punish you for knocking me unconscious, thus missing out on my son's birth, childhood, rise to prominence, and execution." Lucifer said, "And how do you plan to punish me? With that massive rod you are holding?" Lucifer winked. Yahweh said, "Not in that way. This rod contains a secret, very dangerous weapon once activated." Yahweh activated the secret and lethal weapons, and the other Zetans looked at him in awe, jealousy over not being smart enough to design such a weapon. Yahweh said, "Everyone except Lucifer, get out. We have some talking to do." All the other Zetans left, heading to the armory a couple of kilometers away to pick up their own weapons. Yahweh led Lucifer at gunpoint to the portal to Earth. Lucifer said, "What are we doing now? Why are you leading me to the portal?" Yahweh said, "Don't worry. I just found it too stuffy in there to have a proper conversation. Let's talk about our relationship and resolve our problem." After that, Yahweh had a good talk where they managed to resolve most of their issues and differences. Unfortunately, Yahweh pressed the wrong button when he was going to deactivate the dangerous weapon. So instead of deactivating it, he fired off a massive blast that incinerated Lucifer and destroyed the portal. The destruction of the portal caused a massive dimensional rift between the Divine Palace and the rest of the Divine Dimension, leaving Yahweh stuck by himself in the palace. Unlucky.